Hey there, everybody. It's the Axle Shifter here, back with another Multiverse Wars episode, and this also marks the second kind of Transformers matchup with another character. So this time it's going to be a main character of the entire franchise, that being, of course, the legend himself, Optimus Prime, versus another robot character, that being Gipsy Danger from the Pacific Rim series. These two robots are going to be battling out, and we're going to be seeing in this episode of Multiverse Wars who would win this battle. And be sure to stay tuned for the rest of the series until the 30th episode of Multiverse Wars. I think we all know who that is if I posted it in the community tab on my channel. So without further ado, let's fucking go, guys. Let's do this. Now, there are plenty of different versions of the Optimus Prime character from several different dimensions, timelines, shows, movies, games, whatever you call it. But for this specific battle, since Gipsy Danger is mostly basically live-action movie, we're going to be using the Michael Bay version of Optimus Prime, essentially the Bayverse from the several different live-action Michael Bay Transformers films, where Optimus Prime takes place in. Now, Optimus Prime's origin remains mostly the same as most other universes do in the Transformers multiverse. He is the leader of the Autobots, and is a faction of mechanical aliens who fight for the good in all sentient beings. And he's also started off as a humble worker who pretty much his home planet is Cybertron, until he was forced to take on the command of the Autobots when he discovered that he was a Prime. And essentially the Cybertronian version of a fucking angel, essentially. But then when Megatron became corrupt and forced the Decepticon fraction of Order Conquer World, the war ended up destroying their own planet, and it has eventually led them to Earth, which they reside to this day. But now that we're done talking about his origin, now we're going to move on to his powers, abilities, weapons, and feats. And since he is thousands of years old in this version of the character, well, he has plenty of weapons, experience, powers, abilities, and feats. For starters, he has some pretty impressive close quarters ability combat, as a single punch from Optimus basically completely destroyed Bone Crusher's face, and all Decepticons should at least scale to Scorponk, who completely shrugged off an A-10's gun with Matrix missiles, and almost all Autobots should also be able to scale to this as well. He also completely tanks a re-entry from the impact from space with his fellow Autobots. He even gets tackled off a bridge by, once again, Bone Crusher, who is strong enough to tear buses in half with a single tackle. But Optimus is still unharmed by this. And he also has his guns, which are capable of shooting a couple gunshots with Ironhide's help to take down the Demolitioner, but he's still cool by himself, as he easily blows a hole in Demolitioner's face and kills him. His guns even have a rapid fire setting, which allows him to rapidly shoot bullets out of his with seemingly no end. He even has once again some more durability feats, as he flies off the ring and completely destroyed military jets on him without a single scratch. And his speed is pretty standard because in his vehicle mode, his truck basically, he pretty much just goes the same regular amount of speed as a normal truck would, but there are a few differences actually, as he can keep up with Bumblebee, who is a Chevy Camaro after all, and they're known for typically being much faster than a standard truck, so that's pretty interesting. And as for his actual combat speed when he's fighting and not in his vehicle mode, it is still pretty impressive, as he can casually keep up with many of his opponents, mostly being Decepticons, and yeah, it's pretty impressive. But despite being over thousands of years old and having been very experienced and very skilled when it comes to fighting and combat, he still does have his fair share of weaknesses. For starters, he can still be damaged if you hit him hard enough, as you see in the clip right here in the one movie, he had his arm ripped off, so he could easily still be damaged by the right technology or enemy. Optimus also sometimes holds back when it's not necessary, so he's not often using his full power, really. Now, a lot of the time he does use his full power, but sometimes he doesn't, and that could be pretty detrimental to the battle for his favor in the long run, as his force field, as we've seen, is also can easily be weakened and or damaged or completely destroyed by, once again, the right enemy or opponent. But still, in the overall, really, Optimus Prime in this version is still a fucking badass, just like all of his versions in several different universes or dimensions, or once again, whatever you would like to call them. And he is one of the perfect opponents for Gipsy. In August of 2013, San Francisco was devastated by a giant creature known as the Trespasser. After its eventual defeat, more kaiju continued to appear. Nuclear weapons were effective enough of killing it at first, but that kaiju surfaced, and it decided that a new, more efficient method of destroying the kaiju was absolutely needed, and this led to the creation of the Jaeger program. 2 or more rangers or pilots came into the picture as well, and linked their minds together in the process called drifting, allowing them to fight kaiju directly in the giant robotic body. This led to the creation of the monster known as Gipsy Danger, and it continued to fight ever since then. Now that we're done with the background, we're moving on to powers and abilities, just like we did with Optimus. For the durability standpoint, he is durable enough to get thrown by Leatherback and still be perfectly healthy and fine. He even gets smashed through a building by Orchid and he's still perfectly functional. And he even withstands a blast of the underwater nuclear explosion, an explosion that killed Category 4 kaiju and created a pocket of air easily over 1,000 meters across. So this robot is getting thrown around in like a fucking ragdoll, and he's still functional and still manages to keep on and fight, and mostly win those battles. He even withstands the heat re-entry from over 50,000 feet to 20,000 feet, and the descent was altered by a nuclear purge. As for his combat speed, the robot is also capable of dodging acid attacks from another monster in the movie. So that's really impressive that this robot that weighs tons of pounds is easily capable of dodging stuff, but then again, so does Optimus. And speaking of which, I want to talk about again the Jaeger pilots, as I may be been talking about the robot itself, but there are actually pilots that control Gipsy Danger, the robot, and they are trained with several different types of martial arts, including sumo wrestling, Krav Maga, boxing, and Muay Thai. The Rangers are also taught to use long-range and close-range weapons, training sessions that have also been known to last for very long hours. And so, yeah, they've also used this experience to use for the robot Gipsy Danger itself, and used that experience to make something better. But as for his weaknesses, on the other hand, he could still be destroyed eventually with the right force and right technology again, much like Optimus. Also, the robot is completely unsustainable by a single pilot, unless highly skilled or extremely determined one. Also, its uses of vortex and nuclear ones almost entirely left it drained of its power, so that's how much energy it contains and uses to actually contain that much power. But overall, Gipsy Danger has served his purpose well, and still continues to serve his purpose to this very day, as he fights several different monsters and enemies throughout the movie. And hey, we possibly might even get a sequel later. I would probably like it. That would be pretty fucking cool. And now we have reached the end of today's episode of Multiverse Wars. Who would actually win this battle? Who would win the mega fight between some of the most legendary robots? Well, this fight is actually going to be pretty close, as Gipsy Danger is no slouch here at all, and this version of Optimus may consider to be one of the weaker versions and iterations, because he is nowhere near as powerful as his other versions from the other universes of Transformers. But I'm still confident to say that after some difficulty, Optimus would eventually be able to overpower Gipsy and be able to win this one. Now, Gipsy, despite being very powerful, it always has 2 humans, and more specifically, the Rangers controlling it, while Optimus is a full-blown fucking machine, and is trained for several thousands of years, while the Gipsy's robot, the ones controlling it, have only been really trained for at least the last few years. and that's really only the most basic forms of combat. Whereas Optimus has trained in many more forms of combat, some basic and some even greater. He also has several other different useful abilities, such as his rapid fire guns. And while speed is pretty similar, Optimus can transform into a truck, and the Gipsy robot, well, cannot. It's not a transformer. But still, I would eventually believe that thanks to Optimus's force fields, yeah, remember that? He can use the force fields to protect himself from Gipsy's attacks. And eventually, I would say that Optimus would eventually be able to beat Gipsy, or at least severely cripple the robot, and would win. So, in the end, overall, for this episode of Multiverse Wars, today's winner would be Optimus Prime from the Michael Bay universe. Now, would you like a rematch between the another version of Optimus versus Gipsy? Because that could be pretty interesting. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Multiverse Wars. What do you think about it? I don't fucking know what else to say. I guess see you later.